Hello, my wonderful listeners. It's me, Fax 5 I'm back with yet another Nazi speech, and honestly, these things fascinate me. It's one thing to know just how effed up the Nazis were, but really getting into just how downright messed up and nonsensical their statements were, it adds to another sheer level of, honestly, I don't know the proper word to describe what I'm trying to express. I mean, I've read the speech ahead of time. I'm even reading from a script right now. I've had time to prepare for this, but I really can't think of the proper word. I don't know, maybe absurdity? Like, we all probably know that Nazi Germany, Hitler's word was law, but he couldn't be everywhere all the time, so there had to be something in play for the day-to-day shit, sooner or later. Let me think. You're gonna get some dumb scenario where one guy is digging in his garden, and in the process, he accidentally flings a rock into his neighbor's window, and that sort of petty stuff has got to be resolved somehow, like you know what I mean? This particular audio is for a couple of buddies of mine who are lawyers and or lawyers in training, depending on when I actually get this out. They're Americans, so maybe they can give me their perspectives on the actual legal workings of these effed up totalitarian regimes. Granted, this particular speech doesn't go too much into the actual Nazi-era laws, but it does cover the ideals, the rationale, and the mindset surrounding the Nazi legal system in general. As per tradition, I will be replacing Führer, or the Führer, with Daddy. Now let's get into this bad boy. Background. Hans Frank was a high German legal official. He is perhaps most familiar from Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will, which puts him on stage to deliver the concluding paragraphs of this speech. It is interesting that he makes no mention of the Night of Long Knives, little over a month prior to this speech, when several hundred people were killed by extrajudicial processes. Frank argues that National Socialism is working to transform the German legal system so that it will serve the community, suggesting between the lines that abstract principles of justice are not needed. Instead, the party and Hitler should be able to do whatever they think necessary. As Frank says in his conclusion, Hitler is the supreme judge in Germany. The impact of National Socialist thinking on the German legal system, delivered by Hans Frank in 1934. Daddy announced that National Socialism would greatly transform the German legal system in the party program of 1920. We formulated the first principles at that time, demanding the replacement of law that served a materialistic worldview foreign to us, and its replacement with German law. Now that Daddy with his movement and party have taken power in the German Reich and its provinces, it is essential to implement National Socialist principles of justice. Today, just as National Socialism has taken over the political, economic, and cultural life of the nation and formed them according to its irrevocable program, it is also necessary to have a breakthrough in law to fill it with National Socialist thinking. It is necessary to transform law from its very foundations, since the nation's legal system had become foreign. Legislation in the courts developed according to the general decline of our social, cultural, and governmental systems at the time, which no longer had any relationship to the needs of the people's community, but rather exhausted themselves in stubbornly applying foreign and formal principles of justice. Okay, now wait a second. Stubbornly applying foreign and formal principles of justice. I'm gonna not comment on the foreign part, because honestly, I thought about it. I found it to be a bit too confusing. So, I'm just want to note the formal principles of justice. I mean, isn't that what the purpose of a judicial system is? Or a legal system in general? To, codify what counts as justice and then properly, I guess, disperse it or apply it or whatever the proper word is. Because, I mean, maybe it's a translation issue, but if I heard someone talk about informal justice, I'd assume, it was some sort of mob-like thing, or if not a mob-like thing, then maybe some sort of, blood feud where it's like, oh yeah, it's not legal, but I just decided to beat the guy up because he wronged me, stuff like that. Truth be told, considering just how effed up the Nazi state was in general, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the kind of stuff he is referring to. The justice system was entirely subordinate to the usual evils of political self-interest, and were in constant conflict with the needs of the community. a deep chasm opened between the people and its justice system. Justice in Germany had become a catastrophe. Faith in justice declined, as did confidence in German jurists. One need not speak of the justice system between 1918 and 1932. In the Reich, as in the provinces, the judicial system during these years was completely unfruitful, without any creative achievements on the part of the legal bodies. Okay, this part. Without any creative achievements on the part of the legal bodies. Now, I am no expert in law. I do sometimes have to read through it and try to parse through the legalese, but then again, the folks who I am specifically making this for, well, aside from, well, I guess you could say I'm making this for all my wonderful listeners, but a couple folks in particular are either current lawyers or lawyers in training, so I have to ask, isn't one of the points of a legal system to not necessarily be creative? Like, I can understand the idea of a creative interpretation of something, and that there are many different ways to interpret law, as well as, what law means, how it should be enforced, all that jazz. When you think about it, a legal system is probably the closest thing that we in America have to a state-sponsored, a state-sponsored priest system, insofar as it's all about trying to decipher what this law could mean, and, the many different ways of interpreting the law. I guess the main difference is that the law can regularly change and doesn't have some sort of divine origin, but general idea. But yeah, like the idea of I'm sorry, I'm just trying. I'm rambling a bit, but I'm just trying to make sense out of this. Without any creative achievements on the part of the legal bodies, is he saying that judges should just create new laws out of whole cloth? Honestly, if any of you listening can comment on this, please let me know. Thank you. From the beginning, we National Socialist jurists were at the center of our movement's battle against a system that attempted to battle or even destroy nationalism, shamelessly misusing every resource of weak and worn-out liberal or reactionary legal pettifoggery. Today, the National Socialist German Workers' Party is responsible for the direction of the German legal system, led by the Reich Legal Department and the League of National Socialist German Legal Professionals. Consistent with the unity of party and state, they have the task of ensuring that the whole philosophy of our government flows exclusively from National Socialism. As everywhere else in government, the party and its ideas must guide justice, since it is only a means of daddy for the realization of National Socialism. I mean, considering this is literally Nazi Germany, it does make sense that within the context of, literal Nazi Germany, they would want a unity of party and state. But, I've lived in America my whole life. We have two main parties, and when you think about it, they really are less individual political parties and more like two big tent coalitions that grit it and bear it and stick together, which is why you can often end up with two people who may have drastically different beliefs, just, gritting it and bearing it under the same umbrella. Most famously, I'd say that's how you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Joe Manchin, both in the Democratic Party. But, yeah, I'm just so used to a much weaker party system in the US that, well, I guess it's just kind of interesting to hear somebody advocate proudly for the exact opposite. Here, as everywhere else, representatives of decay may not be leaders of the National Socialist legal system. Despite the resistance that still surfaces occasionally here and there, the National Socialist German Workers' Party has already implemented many legal measures that have taken our legal system into fundamentally new directions. Law is a way of maintaining both the internal and outward order of the life of the people and state. Law, like the state, serves the people. The task of the legal system is not to enforce legal pettifoggery, but above all to guarantee the life of the people. Law cannot privilege one part of the people over against others. Law must rather be based on this principle, the common good before the individual good. No legal system can claim to be a servant of the people if it enables those who harm the people to conceal themselves under the cover of law and receive advantages that harm the people. The individual has value under the law only insofar as he is valuable to the community. The individual must bow under the law to the needs of the whole people. Formerly, law aimed only at preserving the outward order. National Socialism recognized only that law protects the substance of the existence of the people of the state. The people does not exist for the sake of the law, rather law exists for the sake of the people. In our new legal order, we do not want to permit formal principles that allow for selfish ambition. No, the National Socialist millennium ahead of us demands a legal system with firm foundations that all of Aryan humanity can view with pride. Okay, like logistically speaking, I have no idea how this would work. I get that this is kind of a motivationally feel-goody speech, you know? Oh, look at how amazing our new system is. And they don't go into much detail about how it works. Like I said before, it's more about the philosophy. But let's just break down this paragraph. Alright, so the individual has value so far as a value to community. The individual must bow under the law to the needs of the whole people. Okay, well, that part makes sense. You know, you have the basic idea. Individualism is passé, it's the past. We need a communal-based law system. Okay. Let's see. Formerly, law only aimed at preserving the outward order. So, I guess what it's saying is that, I presume that by outward it means public, like it only regulates what you do in public, not what you do in private. That's my guess. National Socialism recognized only that law protects the substance of the existence of the people and the state. National Socialism recognized only that law that protects the substance of the existence of the people and the state. I'm gonna assume that's a translation issue because I'm not sure what that means. Okay, the people does not exist for the sake of the law, rather the law exists for the sake of the people. Okay, that makes sense. You know, the idea is that, it's like, people shouldn't bend to the law should bend to the people. Okay, fine. In our new legal order, we do not want to permit formal principles that allow for selfish ambition. So, in our new legal order, so we have a new legal order, okay, we do not want to permit formal principles that allow for selfish ambition. I guess you're saying, like, we don't want people to be able to take advantage of it? Alright. I guess? No, the National Socialist millennium ahead of us demands a legal system with firm foundations that all of Aryan humanity can view with pride. Yeah, a lot of this was gobbledygook, honestly. I mean, okay, looking back at it, maybe it's an issue with translation, but come on, man. The goal of National Socialist legal renewal is to realize the principles of National Socialism firmly and untiringly in all areas of law. The whole legal system, including independent judges who naturally enjoy the protection of the National Socialist state, must be based entirely on the National Socialist worldview. Okay. Oh god. Okay, I mean, independent judges in Nazi Germany. Independent judges in Nazi Germany. Independent judges in Nazi Germany. Okay, I know I just repeated myself a few times, and I'll explain what I'm laughing at, for some folks who might be a bit confused, and hopefully I'm remembering this correctly, but the idea of an independent judge is that a judge is able to, do their job in judging things and laying down the law without having to fear general political ramifications should they give out a ruling that is unpopular. And I mean, like, literally just earlier, the guy talked happily about, the unity of party and state. Meanwhile, an independent judiciary, by definition, would require a separation of party and state. Heck, an independent judiciary would require, more individualistic rights. And I mean, like, I'm just... Okay, let's get back into this. A unified and authoritarian state is the foundation for the outward and strong life of our people. The foundation of racial protection, which alone can receive effective support under our legal system, depends on the party as the powerful organism of the idea and worldview upon which the German people and government are building, on the soil of Germandom, the territorial foundation of national existence, on the honor of the German people, and on the cultural institutions of the nation. Over the past year, we have ensured in all these areas an enormous legal transformation in the nature of all our ethnic and governmental institutions. It would exceed the scope of my discussion were I to go into detail on all the individual laws. I know he says he's not here to discuss every individual law, but it would be a lot cooler if you did. I mean, not every individual law, but just enough of them, please. Well, and again, I did kind of walk right into this. However, we can say today with pride to the National Socialist German Workers' Party that a legal transformation similar to what National Socialism has accomplished is unique in German legal and governmental history. As National Socialist jurists, we are proud of our work, and I encourage jurists of all countries of the world not to criticize the National Socialist state, but rather to study our legal system that I declare to be the most modern system of any country on earth. Most modern. Oh God. I mean, okay, I guess maybe it's a translation thing, and I guess if you want to say modern insofar as recent or new, you could say he would be correct, but he did make it pretty clear he didn't care for, formal aspects of justice, so I highly doubt that. Although I should say, nowadays it's easy to imagine fascism as, kind of a bygone old school era, but at the time it was the hip new ideology. Liberal jurists are always proud that their legal system protects individual rights. We favor instead the rights of the community, and such community law is the center of the transformation of our legal system. Earlier, the individual was at the center of the law. Liberal or immoral laws gave the individual the right to violate the moral order, which was often very harmful to the people. We, on the other hand, have so strongly established protections for the community such that no one in Germany today can threaten the security of our people without being punished. We have, in the broadest sense, guaranteed the security of the decent part of the German people by acting against criminals in the broadest sense. In particular, through ruthlessly administering the death penalty, through introducing special courts, through introducing people's courts to protect the people and the state, thus discouraging all harmful currents. I know it's not surprising that Nazi Germany used the death penalty a lot, but one thing that I found kind of interesting is that I'm used to this idea of the death penalty having this kind of solemn final idea to it. Throughout history there have been a lot of people who have cheered on, the legal executions of others, but I'm more saying, from a legalistic standpoint, there's this idea, that the death penalty is this absolute last resort, and that was, the absolute best. That's, not including many folks who would argue that the death penalty is just barbaric on its face and should be abolished. And yet what I find interesting is just how absolutely proud, Hans is of being so aggressive in his use of the death penalty. Well, not just him, but the Nazi legal system's use of the death penalty. Likewise, he talks about the people's courts, which I think are actually kind of interesting, because the infamous people's courts of Nazi Germany were basically hilarious kangaroo courts. If you were accused of something and sent to the people's court, it was, for all intents and purposes, a rubber stamp to basically deem you guilty, and, your best bet was probably, you'd basically be given a lawyer who would be like, oh, my client made a mistake, but it was just a mistake, don't be too hard on him, that sort of thing. Yeah, I should post a link to some information on the people's courts, maybe in the description. Maybe I'll just default to the Wikipedia page or something. What else do I? Oh yeah, I also remember, if you were accused in the people's court and put in the people's courts, you weren't allowed to wear a belt or suspenders and that sort of thing. Like, you were given raggedy clothes you had to wear, and basically just the judge would, berate you for a while before you were either deemed guilty or deemed too stupid to be guilty, that sort of thing. The results are clear after a year and a half of National Socialist legislation. Capital crimes like murder have diminished by about half since 1932. In Bavaria alone, the number convicted of crimes has declined by over a fifth in comparison to 1924 through 1932, from 19,402 to 17,200 in the first quarter of 1934. The positive results of Daddy's labor laws show particularly happy effects in the reduction of crime. That is a result of the authoritarian legal system of the National Socialist state. The results are particularly outstanding with regards to juvenile crime. In 1932, there were 42,000 such cases in Germany, but 18,000 now, a reduction of about 42%. This shows National Socialism's clear moral approach to questions of daily life, which has greatly reduced the inclination to criminality by the youth. National Socialism's social legislation has had effects in the broadest areas. Let me give several as yet unpublished statistics that are particularly interesting. Forced auctions in 1934, for example, have declined from 255,000 to 14,000. The number of seizures by court bailiffs to this point in 1934 is 800,000. In 1932, the figure was 1.5 million. There was thus been a decline of nearly half in such court actions. I'll admit I'm just going on vibes here. I can't prove anything, but I just have a hard time trusting this guy's statistics at face value. I mean, well, don't take it personally, Ghost of Hans. Any high-ranking Nazi official, I get a bit, skeptical of taking their stats at face value. I provide these statistics only to show you that National Socialism's legal actions are closely related to its social policies, working to the advantage of the entire German people. The racial legislation, the legislation to eliminate inferior elements, the legislation to protect the labor service, the legislation to protect the land of hereditary farmers, are the only foundation on which National Socialism's 1,000-year legal order will grow. Court proceedings are now conducted in a manner appropriate for the dignity of the German people. Civil procedure in the past had gradually sunk to the level of the stock exchange. We will make the principle that one does not beg for his rights but fights for them the foundation of civil and criminal proceedings. I know the idea of fighting for your rights, it has this very kind of romantic feel to it, of somebody fighting against an oppressive system. But this isn't, some sort of plucky adventurer fighting the legal system that, is corrupt or inept. This is literally the head of the legal system. Well, the bureaucratic head of the legal system, insofar as Hortler was supposed to be the absolute head of these things. But just the idea of, saying, you don't beg for your rights, you fight for them. I did just talk about the infamous people's courts, where you were effectively, berated as you were forced to beg. But at the same time, is he describing, some sort of trial by combat? Just stop and think about it. You have the head judge of a system talking about fighting for your rights within a court. What would that realistically consist of? I understand people might refer to something as a court fight, but it just, I don't know how to describe it. Just something doesn't feel right about, not a lawyer, but the judge describing something as fighting for your rights in terms of the legal system. It just strikes me as downright absurd. Our National Socialist movement appeals to Daddy to forbid as soon as possible the participation of non-Aryan quote-unquote citizens in the law. Naturally, this process will use methods consistent with the high level of German culture, as was previously the case with Aryan legislation. I do not have time to go into the details of the law. I only wish to promise you, my fellow people's comrades, that the legal department of the Reichsleitung will continue our systematic work here as in all other areas. I have established the Federation of National Socialist German Legal Professionals. It is a reliable means of gathering German legal professionals together, encouraging them to once again become close to the people and to understand, to have an obligation, to serve not themselves and the letter of the law, but rather to live for the community of all working Germans. This standing organization has incorporated the Academy for German Law, which uses tested scientific methods to carefully and without haste study and promote changes in the legal system. I'll be real with you. Legal science. The Academy for German Law, which uses tested scientific methods to carefully and without haste promote changes in the legal system. Is he using scientific just metaphorically? I really wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he's made it clear he doesn't like formal law. But scientific methods to study the law? It's clearly not the scientific method, which is kind of its own thing, having a hypothesis and all that jazz. I mean, not necessarily talking about, I guess, the effects of the law, but scientific studies of the law. Well, I mean, the Nazis, they did call nuclear stuff that Einstein was studying, they called that Jewish physics. So I'm not really going to expect much from whatever the heck they call legal science. I believe that I may say the Academy of German Law is an effective cultural instrument of National Socialism. In any event, the Academy of German Law has begun lively communication with foreign academic and scientific centers, and it has been possible to eliminate frequent prejudices against National Socialism. There are many attacks in this area from evil-minded foreign critics against National Socialism and its daddy. As the leader of German legal professionals, I can say that the foundation of the National Socialist state is the National Socialist legal system, and that for us, our supreme leader is also the supreme judge, and that his will is now the foundation of our legal system. Since we know how holy the foundations of our legal system are to Daddy, we and our people's comrades can be sure your life and your existence are secure in this National Socialist state of order, freedom, and justice. I'm gonna be honest, I'm actually kind of curious to try to figure out someday what the heck he means by freedom. I mean, I understand that freedom is a very broad term. It will mean different things, depending on who is saying it and what time period they're saying it. But I can at least deduce what he means by order and justice. Justice is referring to the Hortler's will as, justice, and order is basically just doing whatever Daddy says. But freedom is the one that actually confuses me. If anyone listening has a general idea or has some place where I could look, let me know. Well, this was a pretty interesting read. Like I said earlier, it does feel a bit generic, kind of like a "we did it, woohoo" kind of speech. But aside from some vague overtures to the health of the community and praise of a unified authoritarian state, it's rather difficult for me to pin down much actual stuff he said. It's like one of those guys who can speak for hours and hours without actually saying anything. Heck, even his discussions of the previous legal system is just some vague gestures about how it gave individuals the right to prosper at the expense of the people, and also suppress nationalism somehow. Surprisingly, one of the few distinct things from this era is the use of the term the people. Usually, the people is a broad, vague, difficult to decipher term, but in Nazi Germany, it distinctly referred specifically to individuals of a specific racial group that the Nazis deemed Aryan or Germanic enough to really care about. As for how one can manifest the will of this specific but still large mass of people, well, that's Daddy's job, I guess. Thank you all for listening. Feel free to like, subscribe, and share this around, or leave a comment. Or don't. I'm not your boss. I'm just Fax 5'em. And right now, I'm signing off.